All right, good afternoon. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Market been open here for a little bit and has about 90 minutes left to go today. A lot of stuff kind of happening out there, but nothing too major. If you come to the front pages of sites, you have a lot of talk of, hey, what are big investors buying? Are they selling? Is this market, partying like it's 1999 and all that, kind of jazz? The typical stuff to drive clicks and people to kind of view and read, and essentially eyeballs, which is the role of the media. And that's what the media is about and is driving towards here. But when we look at, what's really happening out there, right? We know a couple things. One, we know that investors are, some of the big money out there is under invested. It's underexposed. We saw that from several analysts. We saw that recently this week from Bank of America Merrill Lynch. And, we don't see that very often when a market's hitting new highs. But what are the implications when that happens? Well, the implications are, hey, if we don't collapse, if we don't drop and don't drop big, they're kind of sitting on the sidelines as things are chasing higher, and we get into some melt up type of scenarios in the short run here. I don't think we're looking at anything like that today. I think what we're looking at today is a gap up based on international money flows last night. And outside of that, we haven't seen a whole lot of money flow into the market here today. In fact, you could argue that, for the most part, we've seen more selling than buying in the market today. But this is one of those where, very few days since this kind of 4-day run up, right? We had this kind of little 4-day run up, right? Sky was falling. Chicken Little was out, kind of screaming that, sky's falling. And then we had these 4 just boom, 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 big pop days. And, since then, basically, we've had one day where the market moved outside of its gap level, but really just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5.5, 6, and now 7 days where the market just sitting where it gapped, right? And, that is not something that I find to be unusual, and it's something that I kind of expect to see more of as this summer continues, until we reach either a dramatically overbought state or we start to pull back in the markets. And, that's just kind of my expectation, what we find to be normal, out there in the market. And, it's kind of acting that way right now. For the challenge, we have one position on the board and no new signals here this morning or this afternoon. CSX close, but it just isn't a new fresh signal here today. I knew it had a chance to be. It just hasn't been. But, there's still a whole lot of bullishness here. And, something that ultimately, whipsawed out for the challenge yesterday and takes off and runs today. Hate when that happens, but, it's a reality of trading, and it's something that, this won't be the first time it happens, but, it'll never sit right when it does. So that leaves us with Boeing, and Boeing up here about $5, up about 1.5%. Pretty much sitting where it was on Tuesday afternoon. And I know it's had some up and some down and some down and some up and all of that, but really just hasn't gone very far. The option here looks like we're slightly green. 1305 is the mark on that here for Boeing. So let's log that. We don't have to make any changes or anything else with it, as our exit date is tomorrow afternoon. But if the option is green, we'll have the ability to hold that tier until next week, and when the green time stop kicks in there. For it, it sure would be nice to see, the that kind of buying binge that we saw come in the other day or on Tuesday. continue here, and I think there's a pretty good chance that we see that, and just kind of hope it comes in sooner than later, and that we're in the position when it does it, rather than time stopped out of it. But a lot that we could speculate there. We did see here today some kind of saber rattling with the U.S. and Iran, and Iran shooting down a drone supposedly, and U.S. President Trump with some Twitter comments and some of that back and forth. It's a region we've talked about, and we saw some of the oil elements with it. And let me go here to the Gulf of Oman. I'll just bring this map up here again. But, here we are with, right over here. You can see Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman. And, we just kind of have this oil corridor here. And let's face it, everybody in this region, Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, they all have incentive to see oil prices go higher. And frankly, so does the U.S. And, just kind of interesting looking at the attacks that we saw, last week, and, kind of how that happened and what's going on. And, nobody really all that fussed about it. And, now a little kind of drone issue between the U.S. and Iran. It's just kind of one of those things where everybody in the region has incentive to kind of drive the tensions higher, right? Because everyone in that region absolutely needs oil to stop cratering. And you could argue that the U.S. also needs oil to stop cratering, to give just more positive economic vibes overall. You look at China, they don't have any incentive to see oil go lower. You look at Russia, they have no incentive to see oil go lower. And it's just kind of one of those real interesting global scenarios where all the players have the same incentive, pretty much. When it comes down to it, they all have the same incentives, and there are other issues and stuff that can be talked about with it. But one of the more interesting issues that I have found, here of late, and when you just kind of gauge, kind of U.S. President Trump's reaction today, it just seems like a lot of saber rattling and not a whole lot of bite behind things. The U.S. did send 1,000 extra, servicemen into the area, servicemen and women into the area. And, just something that kind of has to be watched. And, how's it going to play out? Who knows, right? But it definitely is going to be something that the markets are going to have to, keep an eye on here for quite some time, and it's absolutely not going away. The other story that's absolutely not going away, that's been here with the markets for a long time now, is the trade talks, right, between the U.S. and China. And, we saw earlier this week, U.S. President Trump and Chinese media announced that, hey, talks were going to resume. Some talk here today that those talks could resume as early as Tuesday. So it's one where, look, you have people out there speculating, hey, is a trade deal going to happen? Is a trade deal not going to happen? Is, what's going to go on here? And, the reality is we could see a variety of scenarios, and it's going to be one of those where if there is no deal, market's going to sell off for a bit, and then it'll get bought back up, right? I think maybe one of the more bearish scenarios for investors is if there is a deal and the market just absolutely spikes. And I think that's one where investors are going to kind of look and go, wait a minute. And again, all that depends on the deal, the type of deal, how the deal is arranged, and is it just fluff, or is there actual meat in that deal where, there's substantial change and substantial positives for both sides? Because let's face it, both sides have incentive for the other side to be strong. And, a weak China ultimately bleeds weakness into the U.S. A weak U.S. ultimately bleeds weakness into China. So both sides have, some high incentives. But at the same time, neither side, politically, economically, whatever angle you want to look at it, neither side has to make a deal now. right? It doesn't have to happen now. It's not one of those things where either side is dramatically hurt by no deal right here, right now. In fact, you could argue that if you're U.S. President Trump, you don't want to make a deal yet. You'll want the Fed to continue to lower rates, then make the deal. Now you have your lower rates. Now you have your trade deal. Now you have kind of some catalyst. All you got to do is get some sort of spending package through Congress, which may be the hardest of all those three. And you have something there as far as the as far as the economy goes. So again, it's been a long time story. It's not ending anytime soon, and it will continue to rage here. As far as how does it affect the challenge? Hopefully, I've been very clear about how it affects the challenge. It doesn't, right? It doesn't make a difference. It's one of those where the challenge is based on price action and probabilities and, the news and the talks and all of that type of stuff. That's for the opinion makers and for, some of the short-term type catalysts, that are out there in the market and to explain more than to predict, in terms of price action. So that's where things sit here. Okay. There was an issue that came up here with the challenge spreadsheet where these links were not going to the proper videos. They were actually going to just the main page of the live trade seat. So if you had that happen as you came into some of these replay links, my apologies there for that. That has been sorted out for the most part. There still may be just a few that need fixing, but that issue has been rectified. And if you do come in and you want to watch one of these, all you have to do is kind of just come in and click on the link, and it'll bring it up and bring up the proper replay if you are signed into the Trader Minute site. So that is fixed and good to go, and that includes most of these video recordings and kind of how they sit. I know there was a lot of work that had to be done to make that happen. I appreciate Michelle for taking care of most of that, and should be finished up here within the next day or so. So either way, you can access all of these on Trader Minute on the archive page and bring them up as well. Tomorrow, the link for this page will be changing, so look for the new link in the message feed, and you'll see it there. And we'll have that kind of new link. This link will still be active, right? But it just won't be updated, right? The new link will have all the updated information and everything that goes on between now and about the next 2 weeks. All right. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.